we got this question about low fry. Yeah, here it is. Do you believe it can actually be done without any false chords or vestibular folds? They say that Tatiana from Jinjer is doing low fry, but it totally sounds like grunt to me, maybe with some fry space. What do they mean, Addie?
Well, I think it's like this is where the terms collide because
Mm,
people say fry and they mean like a bunch of things.
yeah.
Um, this is why I don't use these terms, but as long as we speak the same language, I mean, that's what important. When we do fry, what we call creak and creaking, wouldn't use so much false vocal cords, vestibular folds. Sorry, that's I
Vest.
got it from you.
We have to do
Yes.
with some fry. Vestibular.
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 Oh, now it works. Yeah. So false chords.
Much easier.
Yes. So not so much. Fry would be mainly on the real true chords,
Mm,
um, but false chords would be for distortion.
yeah.
But what I think she meant, the person with that question, was that when she goes low, Tatiana from Jinjer, when she goes low, she goes like really low. We can hear lots of undertones there. And the trick is mostly about the grunt and growl, not so much distortion in these pitches. Depends. I'm talking about like Pisces, what she does there. It's mostly about grunt and growl, like Emerald away.
Mm,
So there's that. But on their newer songs, she goes mostly distortion with grunt.
mm.
It's like mixing. So she goes like, no, no judgment. Something with punishment. I don't remember the lyrics. Punishment. So I'm aiming at distortion, but I'm taking it down so the grunt wants to come and play.
Yeah.
And it's really darkening the sound color, and my larynx is low.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not feeling or thinking that I'm doing so much fry there or creak. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, it would be no judgment, and we hear like a fuller sound there, not so much chaotic on the noise,
Yeah.
more rolling on a noise and more white noise.
Yeah. It's really cool. It's so much fun to work to have this Q&A session with you and just talk about all
Thank
this
you.
stuff. It's so cool. And you're doing some amazing things. Yeah, yeah. So
Thank you.
I mean, honestly, I love this stuff, and the moment I'm doing a million different things, and it's all exciting, and I'm hopefully will be able to help out a lot of people. But yeah, I would have such a good time just coming and hanging out with you and just doing a metal album for like just write a couple albums
Yeah.
a year or two and just grow some hair and
Or you could use a wig. You have like a photo with a wig on your Facebook page.
I've had lots of wigs, half wigs, lots of wigs in my stage performances, depending on the character. But
Yes, I would love to make a metal album with you.
but it's really interesting you talk about that. So if we have the if that's what we would call fry or creaking, yes,
Yeah.
but other people might say "Oh," is got a
Yeah.
little bit of oh. It's
Yeah.
starting to activate like this
Distortion. Yeah.
very smart individual as is starting to activate the grunt, the vibrations, the air turbulence, and those arytenoid cartilages in there. Oh, right there, I can already feel them, and it
Mhm.
gets that rolly sound.
I even hear a little bit of distortion there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's like a tuba thing going on.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. Oh, no. So I think that's what we could say. Just that we work on isolating these little things, but it's really about maybe Ginger is thinking now, she's like experimenting with a new sound. She's like, oh, actually,
Mhm,
I found this and I love how it feels and love how it sounds. It's working
mhm,
great for me. So on my newer stuff, I'm doing this. I mean, in a
mhm.
way, she's kind of changing her vocal sound design, it sounds like
Yeah.
you mentioned.
Yeah, like she finds like new nuances or whatever. But again, if we're like talking, I mean, we love to get nerdy about things. We love it. We can do it for hours. But when we're talking about the real world, usually we hear combinations, and sometimes you can't get too nerdy. Like, was it like a little bit of distortion there? I mean, is it really beneficial? And sometimes it is if you want like a very specific sound.
Yeah.
Like I had a time when I wanted to mix a little bit of rattle with my distortion because I was fascinated with that sound. So
Yeah.
I really worked nerdiness like distortion and rattle, distortion, because I wanted to have a phrase on it. You
Yeah.
know, broken. It sounded so much cooler to me.
Yeah.
So
That,
I trained that. I trained like separating them and then adding them together and find like how they work together. But in the real world, again, we're doing combinations, and sometimes it's more helpful to think about paths.
mm-hmm.
Like if I go up, I go more creaking and rattle, or whatever. If I go down,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, because we can have this discussion forever. Like, oh, I hear like 30% grunt in there. What do you think? No, I hear only 25%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It doesn't really. I mean, what matters, what I think, what matters is that, to me, is people understand how these things, these sounds are made, and they learn how to produce them in a healthy way that they
Yeah.
can continue to produce for many years without it messing up their voice, or them experiencing pain. Actually had singers tell me, "Oh, it hurts every time I do it," and I'm like, "Well, we need to work,
Mm-hmm.
because you shouldn't feel any pain when you do."
Yes. And of course, it's divide and conquer. Like we said before, we have so many elements in the human voice. So if you can control your twang separately from your larynx, and then you add the distortion and you do that, and then you add some rattle, and only then you can mix things together to create like your own sound.
Yeah,
But if you know how to control each one, um, if we're talking about effects, do them pitch and then with a pitch and then doing them pitchless and then try to combine and then see like, okay, how much twine do I have here? Maybe less, maybe more. Then we can get like really good at this stuff.
mm-hmm.
And people who do this for a living, let's say it like that, they're usually very, very skilled at dividing all these parts so they can mix them and then
Yeah.
create. Um,
I mean, well, this is what they're passionate about. It's what they've been doing for years. It's what they've been experimenting with for years. They know their instrument. They know their body. They might call it different things altogether. They might not even know
mhm.
anatomically what they're activating, but they're very, very skilled at
Yeah,
knowing the sound it makes and what they have to do to make it happen. You know,
yeah.
that's I think it's really fascinating. But I agree with you. My mission is to help get information out to singers of
Mhm.
different styles everywhere, and that's what I did in my course, is group things together. So the basic elements that you need to sing any style, and then in sound design we go into more detail about how to learn to create your own sound design. But first, if you want to be really skilled at it, you've got to learn how to isolate
Yes.
certain functions and certain activities. Then you get more and more skilled at combining them.
Definitely. And it's funny because I've been doing distortion for many, many years. I just found it, along the way because I had to sing like heavy metal stuff, Iron Maiden and Dio and stuff like that. But then when I started to practice CVT, when I just started out, I was working on reduced sounds. I think it was curbing. And along the way, I found suddenly a different nuance to my distortion.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of going, hey, I suddenly went, oh, that's a really nice sound.
That's
And
cool.
that's like the metalcore style do that. Lamb of God and sometimes Sleep Not sometimes he's most of the times he's more open.
Mm.
But we have like Meshuggah, they have like this closed sound. And I didn't really work on the sound with the distortion. I just worked on distortion, and then I worked on some reduced sounds, and then suddenly I could combine them together. Like, oh, this is a nice sound. So
Yeah.
exactly, just isolate and then.
It's so valuable. I mean, I worked with a client when we first started working. It was all on effects and getting
Mhm,
them healthy. It was mixing a lot of things. Wasn't really sure, was experiencing some discomfort. But after we worked for a little while, then when we actually started working more and more on singing just songs with no effects,
mhm,
and we worked on singing a Bruno Mars song
mm,
to give this really nice legato and get this consistent airflow moving and muscle activity and getting a little bit more loose. And all of a sudden, his distortion and effect singing just went
yeah.
right up. So it's in sports they call it cross training.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it can really help your metal singing by getting more solid at the sounds of your singing without the effects. It
Yeah.
will make you actually a stronger, better singer.
Yeah. And the other way around. I experience it with many singers when they tend to when they have issues with their support.
Yeah,
And usually we would say, okay, we don't do effects if you have issues with your support. So I went and tried that out with some singers. And actually, when they did effects, they suddenly understood support so much better because they had to have a movement and they had to have the resistance. And then when they took it to the clean vocals, suddenly it was like so much better. So it's like, yeah, you work on something and then something else is getting better.
goes both ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's great, and congratulations on having that experience. I mean, it just shows you're a very good coach and
Thank you.
guide for your singers because it can. I'm really big believer, just from my personal experience, you got to get the right information and you've got to
Yeah.
get with somebody that's skilled in guiding you to the result you want.
Yeah.
Because you can work your tail off if you're going about it the wrong way. If you're asking your body and your voice to do something it's not designed to do, you're
Mm-hmm.
never going to get there because you're trying the impossible. You got to
Mm-hmm.
understand what it's designed to do, ask it and coach it in the right direction. Then it's going to work all the time. And then you do benefit by this. Yeah, it takes so much more body movement for metal singing than it does for other types of singing. Maybe like the really high volume Wagnerian opera singing, that takes a lot of endurance and strength as well. But
Mm-hmm.
they're quite similar, you know. But metal singing, no. I mean, you feel it in your body. you
Yeah.
you have to be stronger and you have to use
Yeah.
that motion. So yeah, that I think it's great to build awareness in a singer that maybe is having difficulty finding the coordination of how do I influence my airflow, what kind of physical energy do I need in my singing, then going to metal singing like, oh my gosh, I need this. That
Mm-hmm.
helps them to then reduce it to where it is again. It's just a fine motor skill. It's like a coordination and influence without overpowering it, right? Because if you same thing in metal singing though, if I just go it's
Yeah.
everything's gonna get tight and it's not gonna work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It's fascinating. Well, thank you so much for being here and your time and
Oh, thank you for having me. That was so much fun.
yeah, we're gonna have you back and I think what could be really fun. We got a lot of topics that